Hey everyone, Tyler here. Today I'm going to go over the new trailing equity feature, which you've probably noticed inside your Einstein or Alexander software. Now, I want to go over this and actually explain how this works. So the first thing is, if you leave this on fixed weekly goal, it's going to continue to just take you out at your fixed weekly goal. So, the same as it always has been for those of you who have been using our product since its inception. Now, for those of you wondering what this trailing equity start feature means is, let's say you hit 2% positive equity, meaning let's say you started out the week at $3,000, right? Because that's our default balance. And let's say you made your 2%, which is $60. So it's $60 in floating equity. What this would now do is it would trail by 1%. Meaning that if all of a sudden your equity went back down by 1% and now you only had $3,030 equity and the account's going to stop you out, it's going to close the trades. But what does it mean by trail equity by 1%? That means it's going to trail up by 1% too. So let's say you have it initiate at 2%. So your trail equity would start at 2%. And again, that's if you change this feature here to trailing equity. All right, let me do that real quick. So if you turn this trailing equity feature on again, and at 2%, which is $60 floating profit on a $3,000 account, it would trail it to whereas if it went down $30 to $3,030 equity, it would stop you out at 1%. But now what happens if it continues to go? All right. Well, if it continues to go, all right, past that, it's going to trail by 1% no matter what. So let's say that now you're up on the week up to 5%. So you're in $3,150 floating profit or equity. So your equity is at $3,150, and let's say it trails it by 1%. That means if it went back down to $120, so $3,120 equity, it would now take you out, right? So it's going to continue to follow you up by 1%. So what this means is you can set a very conservative trailing equity start, but still maximize those weeks where it's a home run, right? Those weeks where you might get more than 2%, 3%, 4%, whenever that happens, you don't need to continue to go in there and increase your weekly goal or change your setting. You can now just let this setting do that hard work for you and trail the equity up. Once it starts at 2%, if you leave it here, it's the default setting, right? Now, what happens if you're going through the week and you trade past Wednesday and the trailing equity is still going? You haven't been stopped out. Your profits are still increasing. Well, the default start trail closeout day is Thursday at hour 14 GMT time. So just to put that in perspective, since we do operate on Eastern time for a lot of things, Thursday, 2 p.m. GMT time to Eastern time, all right, is going to be 8 a.m. So by default, at 8 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, if you are still, in floating profit and the trailing equity feature hasn't taken you out, you're still collecting profits, it would default just stop you out at Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Now, you can change this if you want to run later in the week. Just remember, historically, with this strategy, it is always proven that trading later in the week will continue to get, riskier, which, again, it's not really so risky because you're using the trailing equity feature, which will stop you out if it retraces, but you also have to account for things in the market such as, slippage, gaps, major moves, where it may not be able to get you precisely out at that exact trailing equity either. So again, be aware of that, and that's why we set the default at Thursday at hour 14, which would be 8 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. As you see, all these settings are in GMT time. So that's a little bit on these settings. Just to quickly touch on it again, if you want to leave it on fixed weekly goal and use it how it always has been, this 3% again would just stop you out at 3%. Personally, myself, I love this new trailing equity feature. I'm going to use it. I'm going to leave mine to start at 2% and to trail it by 1%. So no matter what, on those bad weeks, I might get out with 1%. On the good weeks, I might hit a home run, and with the least risk possible, in my opinion, being that this feature will be there to trail up the profit as it goes, and all the equity. So again, that's a little bit on the new feature. I hope that clarifies some things, helps people better understand it, and I hope you enjoy it.